Hello and welcome to Lamplighter. Today is July 3. Today we continue to read from the prophecies of Isaiah. And we're going to see that Isaiah today goes back into that mode where he continues to bring prophecies against the nations. Now, in yesterday's reading, as we concluded, we were looking at the narrative of what was going on in Judah, particularly under the reign of King Ahaz, who was a very wicked king. And if you recall, right at the end of our reading yesterday, we saw that Ahaz died and his son Hezekiah took over the kingship. Now, Hezekiah, very much unlike his father, was described in a very brief description as being a righteous king. And he's even compared in his righteousness to David himself. So that speaks highly of Hezekiah. Because Hezekiah is now the king of Judah, it appears that Judah may have been breathing a breath of fresh air. It appears that they may have been feeling like they have another chance to make things right. Remember, Isaiah, in the midst of all of this, is bringing judgment against the nations, and it's becoming very clear that God is fed up with the sin of the people and is going to use some of these neighboring nations to carry them away into captivity as a punishment for their sin and for their rebellion. Now Judah has some hope because Hezekiah is a good king, and as we'll see in the readings today and even in the reading tomorrow, Hezekiah is going to do some wonderful things to kind of get Judah back where it needs to be in its relationship with God. But before we get to that, let's look at some of the final judgments Isaiah brings against the nations. First, his judgment against the Philistines. Do not rejoice, all you Philistines, that the rod that struck you is broken. Speaking of King Ahaz. From the root of that snake will spring up a viper. Its fruit will be a darting, venomous serpent. Your root I will destroy by famine. It will slay your survivors. The Lord has established Zion, and in her his afflicted people will find refuge. So the Philistines are not to become too proud now that Ahaz is out of the picture, because God is still bringing judgment against them for their sinfulness. Then we read the judgment against Babylon. An oracle concerning Babylon that Isaiah son of Amoz saw. I have commanded my holy ones. I have summoned my warriors to carry out my wrath, those who rejoice in my triumph. Listen, a noise on the mountains like that of a great multitude. Listen, an uproar among the kingdoms like nations massing together. The Lord Almighty is mustering an army for war. They come from faraway lands, from the ends of the heavens, the Lord and the weapons of his wrath to destroy the whole country. Wail, for the day of the Lord is near. It will come like destruction from the Almighty. See, the day of the Lord is coming, a cruel day with wrath and fierce anger, to make the land desolate and destroy the sinners within it. I will punish the world for its evil, the wicked for their sins. See, I will stir up against them the Medes who do not care for silver and have no delight in gold. Babylon, the jewel of kingdoms, the glory of the Babylonians' pride, will be overthrown by God like Sodom and Gomorrah. She will never be inhabited or lived in through all generations, but desert creatures will lie there. The Lord will have compassion on Jacob. Once again, he will choose Israel and will settle them in their own land. They will make captives of their captors and rule over their oppressors. So a lot is happening in this judgment against the Babylonians in these excerpts that I've just shared with you. First of all, we see that God is the one who is mustering up the army to come against the people for their sinfulness. We're going to see historically that Babylon is going to have its period of power. It's going to come in and take the people of Israel captive. But this prophecy is also suggesting that a time is coming when the captors themselves will become the captives. In other words, even though it may appear that Babylon is winning, God is going to deal with Babylon, and he's going to deal with them harshly. And their land is going to be destroyed. And the description here, very poetically, is that it will be desolate and only desert creatures will live there. God is going to completely destroy Babylon, and this is his prophecy that they should not become haughty, because though he is using them to bring punishment upon his people, he will also bring punishment upon them. Then we read this section entitled Babylon's Satan-like Fall. On the day the Lord gives you relief from suffering and turmoil and cruel bondage, you will take up this taunt against the king of Babylon. How the oppressor has come to an end, how his fury has ended. The Lord has broken the rod of the wicked, the scepter of the rulers, which in anger struck down peoples with unceasing blows, and in fury subdued nations with relentless aggression. The grave below is all astir to meet you at your coming. It rouses the spirits of the departed to greet you, all those who were leaders in the world. You also have become weak as we are. You've become like us. All your pomp has been brought down to the grave, along with the noise of your harps. How you have fallen from heaven, O morning star, son of the dawn. You've been cast down to the earth, you who once laid low the nations. You said in your heart, I will ascend to heaven. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will sit enthroned on the mount of assembly, on the utmost heights of the sacred mountain. I will ascend above the tops of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. But you are brought down to the grave, to the depths of the pit. Those who see you stare at you. They ponder your fate. Is this the man who shook the earth and made kingdoms tremble? The man who made the world a desert? Who overthrew its cities and would not let its captives go home? You have destroyed your land and killed your people. I will rise up against them, declares the Lord Almighty. I will cut off from Babylon her name and survivors, her offspring and descendants, declares the Lord. So here we see the destruction of Babylon. It's this Satan-like fall that is described. Babylon so full of pomp, so full of power, so full of arrogance, thinking they are going to be the conquering army who conquers the whole world. And in essence, they too will be destroyed. They'll go the way of all the other kings that God has annihilated. God is the one who will ultimately be victorious. It's the same theme being repeated over and over again. And I love the imagery here of Babylon joining all the other defeated kings, and the defeated kings sort of taunting the king of Babylon, saying, where are you? Why are you here? You were the one who was so high and mighty, but you couldn't stand up against God just as we couldn't. It reminds us of who really is in control. And then there's another Babylon judgment at the end of our reading today, where God says, go post a lookout and have him report what he sees. When he sees chariots with teams of horses, riders on donkeys or riders on camels, let him be alert, fully alert. And the lookout shouted, day after day, my Lord, I stand on the watchtower. Every night I stay at my post. Look, here comes a man in a chariot with a team of horses. And he gives back the answer, Babylon has fallen. Babylon has fallen. All the images of its gods he shattered on the ground. Oh, my people crushed on the threshing floor. I tell you what I've heard from the Lord Almighty, from the God of Israel. Again, it's just a reminder that Babylon is nothing. Even when they feel so powerful, they cannot measure up to the power of God. The same continues to be the message shouted to God's people through the ages of time when he says he is the sovereign God. There is no power on earth, even today, that can stand up to our God. God wins, and God invites us to be on his side to win with him. Isn't it great to be a lamplighter? His word is a lamp to our feet and a light to our path. I hope you have a blessed day.